So, Erik,
Yes.
I'm Dan.
Oh, wow. Hey, Dan. I'm Erik.
Yeah. And
I guess you know that. You said my
yeah, I knew that. But, it's
Yeah.
still a good thing to let the people know who don't that we are the Accelerativ Thrust podcast.
Yep. Yep.
And every week on Thursdays at 10 a.m. as it stands right now, which I'm sure you are all listening at exactly that time.
Oh,
When
yeah.
it first uploads.
Yep. That's how you spend your Tuesday mornings, I'm sure.
Yeah,
That and going to the store Tuesday morning.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I forgot there was a Tuesday morning.
Oh, wait. It's
store.
Thursday morning. Happy Thursday, everyone.
Tuesday sounds better. That was the back when CDs were the thing. That was the national release day every week. Now I think it's Friday, oddly enough.
Oh, well, dang.
So I don't know.
Thursday has no relevance at all.
No, Thursday's never really been a thing. I mean, Thursday always made me thirsty because
it's Thursday.
Thursday, and then Fridays always made me want to get French fries. Because it was Friday.
And Sunday made you want to get an ice cream cone.
Ice cream cone. So we had a little convo before we started recording about this dream that I had, and I want Erik to try and interpret this dream.
Okay.
So I'm not going to be able. I have this weird thing about dreams. Like, I don't remember every detail. I never do. And so anyway, I'm probably forgetting some important things, but I guess I'll just kind of do like a quick sort of overview of what I remember about the dream specifically.
All right.
So for some reason, I'm in this house, which it sort of resembled the old house that I live in Nichols, Iowa right now. My dad built a new house on the land, and it resembles the old house that that we all moved into when I was like 16 out here in Nichols. But it wasn't exactly that. For some reason, my sister and her husband were living there, and there was like something going on about a mess that I needed to clean up or something. And I don't remember exactly like what that was about, but I just remember there was some sort of drama happening in the dream. But I don't remember. Again, I don't remember the details. And then all of a sudden, it was almost like, how like that thing happens sometimes in dreams where it's almost like it's like a time warp or something where it's like you jump dimensions where you're like one place and then all of a sudden you're at another place. So all of a sudden I'm like driving home and I have this like bag, and in the bag is a dead deer.
Okay.
So the only thing I can figure out is that for some reason I was out hunting deer in this dream, and I don't hunt. And that's pretty much, that's the basic details of the dream that I specifically remember. Okay. And then I looked up online. Well, actually, first, I want you to tell me, Erik, what do you think that dream could mean? Can you piece anything together?
So let's see. By the way, I am a psychoanalyst. That's why Dan's asking me. For those who don't know.
I trust the science, and Erik's science is, what's coming into play here.
Yeah. Because my science is magic.
Yes.
So that's why I changed my name to have a K at the end.
Erik Magic.
So it was like magic.
Magic Erik.
Yeah, Magic Erik. They made a movie about me. Anyway. So let me get this right. You are in what feels or seems like your old house.
Yeah.
Right? Was that house destroyed?
Yes. Well, yes, it's it was demolished because my dad built this new house.
Right. For the new house. Okay.
Right.
And there's some sort of mess that needs to be cleaned up.
Yeah. Like that's what I think. Well, that's what I think was happening. But, and then there was also some arguing or bickering going on, but I don't know. Like I'm a little foggy on the details there.
Okay. And your sister and her husband were there in the old house?
They were there for some reason.
And they were in the old house, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, it kind of had the feeling of the old house, but it wasn't quite that. Okay. You know what I mean?
So I'm going to consider that part one of your dream. Okay.
Okay.
So part two of your dream, you are driving. Are you driving your current vehicle, your van?
Well,
or do you not know?
I think it was a truck, if I remember correctly.
Okay. A truck you've never owned?
It was either a truck or a car. I don't know. Something like that.
But you're driving. Okay.
Yeah.
And then there's a bag, right?
Yes.
And inside the bag is a dead deer.
Yes.
Okay. And the bag is like just a duffel or something?
Yeah, it's like a big old duffel bag.
Like an army duffel or something. Okay. And inside it's just a dead deer. It's not ripped up or parts. It's like pretty intact.
No. It's pretty much just like I had shot the deer or something, like. Okay. But there wasn't any like indication that like there was no wound or anything.
Okay. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. Well, not that I remember it anyway.
And then what happened at the end? Or did you just wake up? I think I just woke up, basically. So you opened the bag, saw a dead deer, and you woke up.
Yeah, I do remember that there was a part of the dream, and I'm recalling this just now, actually, too, where my dad was like, this is really weird. He was walking into the house, and I don't know at what point this happened in the dream, but he was walking like into the house, and it was like lightning out or something. And behind him were like two other guys. And I think they were each carrying duffel bags similar to the one that was in my truck or car. I can't recall if it was a truck or car. It's the weirdest thing, right? And one of them looked like, do you remember the movie Home Alone?
Yep.
And do you remember the old guy with the beard who he thought was like with the shovel? It kind of looked like him, and a combination of like, I don't want to say his name, but he was a business owner in Muscatine who I think may have passed away. He owned a shop down on West 3rd Street called Wholesale. Do you remember Wholesale?
Yeah. Okay.
Kind of reminded me, and I don't even know his name. I think his name might have been. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it was.
Okay. Yeah. So okay. So yeah, there's kind of more to it. And all right. So any more possible?
Well, the home that your dad was walking into, was it the old house as well?
Yeah. I mean, I would assume so.
Okay.
Yeah, it was like on the outside. Yeah.
That's a tough one. So without getting too personal, well, without trying to get too personal, which I probably will, because dreams are personal.
They are personal. Yes.
I would say that part one of the dream, the old house and your sister there and a mess that needs to be cleaned up. I would say that all seems fairly straightforward. That you stayed at the house. And your sister moved away, and now you're left to take care of things.
That's a really, really good interpretation, actually.
Yeah.
No, seriously, that actually makes a lot of sense. I mean, that's pretty straightforward. Right. I guess the only thing then is, what does the dead deer mean? Because that worries me, because.
Yeah. So you're driving home, and you have you don't know you have a dead deer until you open the bag.
Right.
Okay. So that to me is sort of the crux of the whole thing in this part two of the dream, is that you don't know how bad something is until you look at it.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Sure.
And so to me, this could be related to part one of the dream. If you consider the mess that you have to clean up something that you didn't know about until you looked into it. And then these problems or issues keep piling up because people keep carrying in these bags that you haven't opened yet, but you assume are probably more issues. And since it's a dead deer, it probably are issues that you don't think can actually be resolved. Like you can't really fix a dead deer.
Sure.
You know? So that would be my take.
That's actually a really interesting thing. So I looked up online, and this is what I found this morning, but I'm kind of looking right now and I'm finding like different interpretations. But the one I found that made me really it basically stated that somebody in your life is not who you think it is, basically, or who you think they are. They're not as they seem. So that was kind of creepy, like when I saw that. But then I'm also seeing, so that was this morning, and then I'm also seeing like seven different loss of innocence, which, I mean, I lost my innocence a long time ago. No, in more ways than one.
Age 12, man. I mean?
Yeah, well, well, anyway. Maybe not that long ago. And then, okay, here's another one that's like interesting. Bad luck, but that's shooting a white deer. It wasn't a white deer, and I didn't shoot it.
Yeah.
Connection to nature. This is the one that I think actually might be going on here. Regeneration. You see a deer who has been dead for a long time, which if it's in a bag, it's probably been dead for a while, you know?
Yeah, a little while. Yeah.
I mean, a little while, yeah. It could be a sign of regeneration and rebirth. The deer is becoming the soil, the grass and weeds are growing over it, and it's returning to earth, much like fate. Again, we can see with this symbol that the cycle of life is being fulfilled. I have been kind of just going through like some things in my life that I have realized that need to be changed. You know what I mean? Or I've been certain behaviors that I have been working really hard on trying to change. And so I think that is the most likely interpretation. So
cool.
Anyway, I just thought that I just wanted to share that with you and all of the listeners because I like sharing my personal life with everybody.
And also, this is a great way to introduce our new service, which is dream analysis. So
dream analysis.
If you send us a message on Instagram or Facebook, describing your dream, then Dan and I will analyze it and tell you what it means.
For real though, like if you guys have a dream and you want us to just talk about this dream in the intro of our episodes, we will do this. We will do this.
Just have any interaction with you guys.
Yes.
Just
you know what would be awesome is if we found a way to have a call-in feature.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I wonder if you can do that with these things.
Well, if anyone out there has an idea of how you can call in and tell us your dreams.
Yes.
and then we'll analyze them.
Just tell us all kinds of things. Yeah. You might also want to edit out the part about the 12-year-old thing.
Oh yeah. Why did that really happen?
No. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
I mean,
trust you.
It happened to me.
Really?
No, it didn't.
I figured not.
Yeah.
That's why I was
maybe if you reverse those two numbers, that's when I lost my
21. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. We got weird and deep, and
we are really heading into some different realms. Real quick, also before we start the record reviews, Wino from The Obsessed canceled some dates, some festival dates because he believes that the COVID is a bioweapon. Wow. So anyway, I figured we should cover that in, like 30 seconds. News in 30 seconds or less.
And in wino news today.
Wino news. We'll just talk about wino. Wino, either the actual stereotype of somebody who drinks or the guy who is in a metal band that thinks that COVID is a bioweapon.
Yeah. Or my favorite style of shoe.
Really? What do wino shoes look like? I don't think
they're kind of like loafers. They're usually black and have a gum sole, and they come from like the dollar store. Yeah, they're just winos.
So wino shoes.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I covered all the winos.
We covered all the winos. Got the news. We covered the dream about the dead deer.
That's all we had today.
That's all we had today.
Just the important shit.
Yeah, exactly. So you all have a great night and
keep your shoes on.
Yeah, keep your shoes on. Don't go barefoot.
Or deerfoot.
Or deerfoot. Oh, I see what you did there.
Yeah.
Folks, we still like records, don't we?
Yeah.
All right.
They're pretty good.
Well, that's good. So we have 4 records we're going to review, plus our local selection. We're kind of doing something a little different with the local selection we are reviewing a single, which just dropped actually on the same Friday. Was it Friday the 13th that the Closet Witch single dropped? Yeah, it was, because that's why she released this. But the same day that Closet Witch dropped their single, Nalani Proctor, who is also a Keokuk musical resident, just like Alex from Closet Witch. Nalani is really good friends with Closet Witch. I met her for 10 minutes, maybe, at a PBJ's show. She used to be part of this sort of alternative duo called PBJ's, and she's really obsessed with horror movies. And that is essentially the reason why she released that single, I think, on Friday the 13th. And we'll get into the explanation as to why I think that, and I'm almost pretty positive that that's the case later. But before we do that, I want to talk about my first pick, which is by the band Sunny Day Real Estate. How It Feels to Be Known. This is the band's 3rd album. It was their reunion album after they had broken up in 1998. Sunny Day Real Estate is kind of known for being pioneers of, like, I guess, second wave emo, sort of. But I think they're kind of more than that. And it's sort of a misnomer, as I don't really think Sunny Day Real Estate were even really aware that the music they were doing was supposed to be that, because the first album, Diary, came out in 93, and that was really before emo was really sort of a term. I guess they used it in the 80s kind of to describe some of those Discord bands, and like Embrace and Rites of Spring, which musically those bands couldn't be further away from the sound of what is known as emo today, or even what it became in the 90s. But nonetheless, the influence that Sunny Day Real Estate has on that scene is undeniable. And so the first couple of albums were, ironically, for being early 90s records, I would say probably the most emo sounding. In fact, I would say Diary, their first album, it's almost ridiculous how ahead of the curve they really were, just as far as guitar tones go, as far as the song structures go. I mean, it was the basic template for like Midwest emo from the 90s. And again, this was really before that stuff existed, at least in such huge numbers. So they broke up, and their second album was just a pink cover, and that was it. And from what I understand, it was actually an unfinished album, and they had already broken up. So they released it after they had broken up. That was it. I think that was in like 94. And then Nate went and joined the Foo Fighters. So did William Goldsmith for a while, but William Goldsmith got kicked out of the Foo Fighters and rejoined Sunny Day Real Estate with a new bassist in 98. And they put out this album. And from what I understand, the singer, Jeremy Enoch, was going through the phase of being a born again Christian. I shouldn't say phase because I don't know. He could still be Christian to this day. I'm not sure. Mm-hmm. But you can really kind of tell there's something very spiritual sounding about this record. Something very, I don't want to say psychedelic, but it definitely sounds like he's having, and this is going to sound really cheesy, but that sounds like he is having some sort of awakening or epiphany with some of the lyrics on this record. It kind of has that same feeling in a weird sort of way as like Radiohead's OK Computer a little bit, but it has almost no resemblance to the past two Sunny Day records. I mean, it's very much a record that I feel exists in its own universe. It's kind of got a post-hardcore thing going on a little bit, kind of an indie rock thing. And it does have elements of what you can hear on Diary, but it almost sounds like a completely different band with a completely different singer. I mean, the songs are much slower, much more like the best way I could describe it, and this is kind of how I would describe Radiohead in a much different way, is like U2 if they were playing like post-punk or hardcore. I guess hardcore would be better because U2 kind of were almost a post-punk band anyway in their early days. But this is a record that has held up so much for me over the years and still today just blows my mind. There's a lot of emotion that I feel Jeremy is singing through the songs. The song structures are out of this world. The guitar tones are out of this world. Like literally this sounds like a record. This sounds like a record that wasn't recorded by humans to me. To me, it's just that good. And that might sound kind of silly, but I think Pillars is one of the best opening tracks on a record ever. I really can't say enough good things about this record. I really love it. I think it's hands down the best Sunny Day record. I think if you're a fan of Radiohead and you're a fan of the, for lack of a better term, slower, more spiritual kind of emo, like Midwest emo or whatever, something like maybe Joan of Arc comes to mind or something like that. Musically, like Godspeed without the orchestration. I think you'll really like this record. Yeah, to me, it's really, really good. What did you think, Erik?
I liked it quite a lot. I had heard the first record, and I had heard this back in 1998. I feel like I probably listened to it maybe 5 to 8 times, maybe not even all the way through, and like in the background at parties and stuff. I wasn't that into it. And unfortunately, I think the reason is because of the idea of genre. Like, we use genre a lot on this podcast.
We do.
And the reason we do that is because it can be a really useful sort of shorthand to talk about different ideas and feelings and sounds that happen that can't really be described unless you compare them to other things, you know?
Right.
And I think that's just how talking about music goes.
Yes.
But with that being said, I think genre can be a really big disservice as well. And I think it sometimes can keep people from hearing things that they would really like, you know, just because they, and by they, I mean me, they think, oh, I don't like emo or whatever. And so you hear it once back in 1998 or whatever, and you're like, yeah, I get it. It's cool, whatever. And you never listen to it again. So that's what happened to me with this record. And I wish it wouldn't have, because it really is really amazing. And I don't even understand how this would fit into what my idea of emo is.
Yeah.
And that might mean that I have no idea what the hell emo is. That's very possible, but it's also possible that this is just that different from other things. So just to get that out of the way, that yeah, sometimes, and I've said this before on the show, sometimes what you think about a band can keep you from finding out what they really are.
Right.
And it can be, you can really do yourself a disservice, because when I listened to this, it didn't remind me of all the things that it was supposed to remind me of. And I sort of triangulated like some different things that I heard in there. On one end, you could have something like Enon or Caliphone or something like that, especially when it goes into the higher vocals, when they're doubled up, the way the songs are put together, they jump around, they move around. The tone and the sound of a song can change pretty quickly without losing itself, without it becoming experimental in any way. And so on one end of it, I can hear that kind of thing. Another end of it would be almost like the Kinks, or especially the Beatles, like vocally. And I know comparing anything to the Beatles is stupid, but I mean, literally the vocals sound just like the Beatles in a lot of this. And then on the other end of this whole thing would be something like Tool. I hear a lot of elements of Tool in there. And I know that sounds crazy too, but there's like Middle Eastern scales. There's like off time rhythms or polyrhythms. There's the same kind of vocal delivery in certain parts of the songs, you know? And so when I'm listening to this and hearing all that, like none of that in my head says Sunny Day Real Estate or emo or what I thought those things meant. So I was really blown away by it and
awesome,
really surprised by it, because it's really good. And I just have to say, you said that the bass player on this was not the original bass player.
I don't believe so. Maybe on this record, but I believe Nate was in the Foo Fighters full time by this point,
because the bass playing is phenomenal.
It's unbelievable.
Like,
that first,
like it's some of the best I've heard. And I'm very particular about my bass players.
Yeah.
I just don't give a lot of credence to bass players, because a lot of the time they're not working into the songs the way that they could. They're playing the roots, they're playing, in time and everything. But the bass playing on this is like, compositionally, it holds the songs together. It's what makes a lot of it interesting. Like there's counter melodies, there's counter rhythms, there's like whoever's playing bass on this, and I didn't do a ton of research, but they're composing the song. Like they're the ones making it interesting and dissonant and pretty and things like that. I'm not saying everyone else isn't doing an amazing job either, but some of the ideas and chances that the bass player takes on this it's mind-blowing. So,
and that first track, Pillars too, just that alone, like the bass part is the most memorable part of that entire song.
Oh yeah.
It's like you said, it's what drives the song.
It's amazing though. And so I would say, and I don't mean this as a dig or to sound negative or anything like that. And so I hope you don't take it the wrong way, Dan, but every once in a while you'll pick something and I'll say, oh man, everyone's heard that record,
right.
But every time you do pick one that I think that, I'm surprised by it. And I remember either how good it was, or I find out how good it was and I didn't even know.
Yeah.
And so I'm really stoked about that. And so anyone listening to this, if you think, oh, that Sunny Day Real Estate with that star thing on the front, I've heard that a million times, listen to it again, because it's not what you remember. It's much better.
Well, so first I would like to say that I don't take offense to that at all, Eric. I actually am stoked that that I'm having that kind of an effect on your view of albums like that.
Yeah.
I would like to add something real quick before we move on to your first pick. Yeah. It's interesting you brought up Tool, because that is totally right, first of all. And I actually remember having this conversation and kind of comparing this album to Tool's Anima. I don't know why I didn't even mention Tool in my review, but it kind of brought back this memory that the reason why I would compare this to Tool's Anima actually has to do with the evolution of each band from the previous album, because Tool's Undertow is an amazing record. It's actually one of my favorites from them. But the heart of it is, I don't want to say basic because they're anything but a basic band, but it's, a very straightforward kind of 90s metal record. Like there really isn't a lot of bells and whistles to that record. It's pretty straightforward. Then you get into Anima, and it literally is like, what have these guys been doing for the last 3 or 4 years? This doesn't even make sense. Like, this sounds like it was recorded on another planet by people who are not human beings.
Yeah.
That's exactly how I feel about this record. If you're going to compare this to Sunny Day's work in the early 90s before they broke up, it's like, I don't know if that being a born again Christian like ignited some sort of creativity in Jeremy Enoch that radiated through the rest of the band, or I don't even know if it's Jeremy Enoch who's responsible for the direction they took on this record. Sure. But god damn it. It doesn't sound like, Anima doesn't sound like anything else. Neither does this record.
I agree.
I'm going to say that, like, I'm going to say Radiohead, and it's, you brought up Tool, and I can actually see the Beatles. I can see the Kinks. I can see, Enon and stuff like that too. Yeah. Those are all very interesting. But at the end of the day, this record sounds like nothing else.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah,
and it's great.
Nice. So my first pick is by an artist named Laura Carbone. This is a live record, and it's called Live at Rock Palace. It came out 2020, so somewhat recently. I had listened to some Laura Carbone in the past, and I thought it was really good. I thought it had inklings of the kind of stuff that I really like, twanginess, atmospheric, stuff like that. And so I checked this one out. And this live record, I can see why they put it out, almost in lieu of a new release, because it's really pretty different, and it's really cool. I think it's really cool. Yeah, so this is just a set of live tracks from her first 2 records. And with the first 2 records that these songs are on, the production is good and it's cool, but it also is like, I don't want to say overproduced, because that's not it at all. It's just very produced, like you can tell that they made a lot of decisions in the sounds, how things were put together, how it was recorded, all that stuff. And it sounds great. The songs are cool and I really like them. But this, on the other hand, is a live band. I assume it's a guitar, bass, drums, maybe another guitar, organ, things like that. Pretty straightforward rock kind of setup. But yeah, it comes off as really different than the recorded versions of the songs because of that. I think that in a way it's a little more reserved because they can't pull off all those same things that they did in the studio. But in another way, it's way more sort of untethered and wild, I think is the word I would use. But yeah, the songs are really cool. Especially there's one called Night Ride, I think. That one, the live version is just so amazing. But yeah, overall it's twangy, it's dark, it's atmospheric. And like I said, it's heavy, but it's heavy like acid rock, or like Howlin' Wolf or something like that. It's heavy in a way that's not heavy metal. It's heavy rock. It's even grungy at times. I would say that if I were going to compare this to things, I would say the heavier side of Mazzy Star. A lot of like the Bad Seeds, Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, and the wildness element of it all, I really like the Bad Seeds and I like Nick Cave. I like the sounds that they make, and I like the way they present them. So a little bit maybe like the chromatics in sort of the washed out element of the whole thing, and maybe a little bit like Black Mountain too. Like, even though Black Mountain gets heavy, it's always a little groovy, it's not hardly ever just like straight heavy metal. So overall though, the songs are really cool. The sounds are really cool. My notes just say brooding but not depressed, post rockish but not bloated, powerful but never forced, and just good classic dark mellow heavy trance rock, so just the classic. But yeah, that's all I really had to say about that. What do you think, Dan?
Well, I gotta make a confession.
Mm-hmm.
When I first put this on, I listened to the first minute and a half or so, and then I ended up having to shut it off, not because I wanted to, but because something came up. But in the first minute and a half, I was kind of like, this is going to be kind of interesting. And then I listened to it again all the way through. And as the record continued, I started out where I liked it. I was like, okay, this is really cool. Then it got to the third track, Swans. And I'm like, okay, I really like this.
Yeah.
Then by the time it got to like, I'm going to say track 5, I freaking loved it.
Nice.
I started to like, and I went back and re-listened to it a couple more times. And then I was so impressed by it. And I don't like live albums,
right?
Like usually. Yeah. And so this is a very unusual circumstance where I'm introduced to an artist with a live album, and I love it. And they're actually on YouTube. There's a video performance of this. Did you know that?
No, I didn't. Cool.
Yeah, check it out. I had to see some of the video of this because I was just like, this is just too good. And then I started to like the beginning of the album just as much as the end of the album. By the time I got to the third listen, I was like hooked. Nice. And everything you said definitely describes it. I think there's some really amazing guitar tones going on here. And I did listen to some of the studio versions, and I have to agree with you that it was good, but I definitely see your point about it being a little overproduced. And to me, I think there's something about the live versions of these songs that you don't get with the studio versions. It's just the guitar tone is just so roaring and in your face here. I mean, it's got some punky stuff, but not punk like fast hardcore or anything. But I mean, 90s sort of alternative punk rock stuff. Some of it definitely, like you said, it reminds me kind of like dark, almost like desert rock, like Mark Lanigan stuff. Kind of reminds me of that. And I can definitely see the Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds comparison. But when it gets heavy, specifically the songs Swans and Night Ride, to me, is one of the heaviest songs on here.
For sure.
When it gets to that, it reminds me specifically of two bands because her voice kind of reminds me of the singers of these two bands, and that is 7 Year Bitch and Boss Hog. I hear a lot of Boss Hog in some of these songs.
Yeah.
And I think that has to do with the dirty blues desert rock sort of element that you hear. There's some really great noisy, almost jam. It gets jammy sometimes, which I actually like, and I also hear some of the Chelsea Wolf kind of coming out a little bit. It's definitely some doomy stuff. I mean, recommended if you like any of this stuff that I just mentioned. It's in my opinion, it's one of the best live albums that I've heard in a long time. And I would probably almost say it's one of the best live albums I've ever heard. I have a feeling that it's going to end up being my favorite record from Laura Carbone just because of that. Now, don't shy away from the studio stuff. The studio version of Swans is absolutely gorgeous as well. That's probably my favorite song, by the way. is Swans, but I also really like Night Ride a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, and the whole thing is so good. This is, if you like any of this stuff that both Erik and I mentioned, check it out. Laura Carbone is awesome.
Nice.
This is live at Rock Palast. I would actually recommend starting with this record too.
That's the thing is, like I said, I had listened to the studio records before. I thought they were good. I thought, a lot of cool stuff was going on. And so I checked this one out and I was just like, wow, this is really different. And I hope for the next studio album that they, kind of continue this kind of sound that they have on this. It'd be cool if they did. So,
okay. So my next pick is from a project. I guess it's kind of a group, but I think it's just a one-off project. It's called the original soundtrack album of Project Polaroid. And it is a collaboration between Kool Keith, which I don't know if I've talked about Kool Keith. I don't know. Have I talked about Kool Keith at all on this show?
I'm sure he's come up.
He probably has, but he's probably my favorite rapper. With that being said, I don't like everything that Kool Keith has come out with, but the stuff that he's come out with that is legendary is like just that, legendary. It's like some of the best hip hop, like the Dr. Octagon album, Black Elvis Lost in Space, all that stuff. I'm a huge fan of. This is an album that came out in 2006. So this is actually like a decade after Dr. Octagon. And I don't know if anybody is familiar with, I'm sure that a lot of listeners are familiar with the Dr. Octagon album, but if you're not, highly recommended. It's produced by the same dude who did, Gorillaz and also Deltron, Dan the Automator, and Kid Koala is also involved, just like Deltron. Very, very good hip hop record. Are you familiar with Dr. Octagon, Erik?
Oh yeah.
Okay, I figured you probably were. Anyway, the original soundtrack album of Project Polaroid. So basically what I kind of understand about this record, I don't know much about it and couldn't really find a lot of info on it, but I think that it's kind of supposed to be a concept record it's supposed to kind of be like a spy movie. The album cover would kind of indicate that. Plus it's called the original soundtrack album. So it's kind of supposed to be like a soundtrack album, I think, to a non-existent sort of spy movie or action movie or something like that. In any case, Kool Keith, and then this guy named Tom C3 who handles all of the beats. And it totally makes sense that this would be kind of a fictional soundtrack to a non-existent movie, because it is probably one of the most cinematic sounding hip hop productions I've ever heard. The beats are very grimy at times, like the drums like almost sound gated and like even sort of noisy, like just that real like just sort of psh, psh. But then there's these incredible samples that they put over top of it. I'm really bad at kind of identifying samples, but a lot of it sounds like cartoon music to me, like sort of like a Johnny Quest cartoon or something. Some of it, there's some orchestral type samples on here. And yeah, the rapping is just, it's kind of standard Kool Keith at this point, which is very just abstract rhymes. And sometimes it almost sounds like nonsense, but then Kool Keith kind of has this way of, they say if you kind of decipher what he's saying, a lot of times there's a hidden meaning behind it. Yeah, I don't know. I can't really say that I've ever really deciphered. Kool Keith is kind of the reason why he's my favorite rapper, is because I kind of prefer to sort of not quite necessarily get what he's saying. To me, I just enjoy the kind of absurdity in his wordplay. And stuff like that. And I think if you're going to really get into Kool Keith, much past, say, like this year, like that this was released in 2006, you kind of have to just sort of take it as it is, because that's really kind of how Kool Keith raps at this point. And this is really no different. I mean, he's just basically talking about space and aliens and things like that. But then also he'll make like pop culture references all over the place. But I think the production on this record is really the key here. I really enjoy the production, and I think it fits really well with Kool Keith's off kilter and just sort of wild style, for lack of a better way to describe it. There's also some really kind of cool guest appearances. This guy named Prince Poe's on a track. Motion Man, who did a collaboration with Kool Keith called Masters of Illusion, is on it too. And that record, I don't know if you've ever heard of that one, Eric, but no. that is a phenomenal hip hop record. I think it came out in like 2001 or something like that. But yeah, Kool Keith is kind of known for doing this kind of thing. And that's ultimately, this is going to sound kind of weird, one of the reasons why he's remained one of my favorite rappers is because I just appreciate the sort of, maybe some people find like his, well, I don't even know if I would call it inconsistency, because he releases like 6 or 7 albums a year. And it's always like under different aliases, or it's always in collaboration with this person or that person. And I think it would be impossible for anyone to own every single Kool Keith release. I wouldn't even try, because he's released a lot of records on his own without a label. He only put out one solo album on a major label, and that's Black Elvis Lost in Space, but he got dropped from the label immediately because he encouraged his well, this is the legend. I don't know if this actually happened or not, but this is allegedly what happened. He encouraged his fans to email like all of the executives, and somehow he acquired the email list of like all of the executives that worked at Columbia Records, the label he was signed to, and harassed them to promote the Kool Keith album more. And I guess like that happened. Like supposedly they were getting emails, they were getting flooded with emails. And so they just kicked him off the label because of that. Now, I don't know if that's true. That could just be an urban legend, you know?
Right.
In any case, it wouldn't surprise me, because that's how crazy this guy seems. Nuts. And maybe I shouldn't say that, but I mean, he definitely has like there's definitely a weirdness about Kool Keith that, and he's totally an individual. Like he sounds like no other rapper. I mean, you know that it's Kool Keith. Anyway, so this is just another sort of release in his entire discography that just sort of, it kind of came out and unfortunately just went unnoticed by a bunch of people that I think would actually really enjoy it. If you like Deltron 3030, I see no reason why you wouldn't love the shit out of this album, because his production style is almost like a grimier version of Dan the Automator. So yeah, this is a very interesting one-off project, a hip-hop project. If you're a fan of Kool Keith and you haven't heard this record, I highly recommend checking it out. It is on Spotify. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. And like I said, my favorite part of this particular record was probably the production. Yeah. So what did you think, Eric?
Yeah, I liked it a lot too. Yeah, it's very Kool Keith. You know, it's, the thing is like when someone's been doing something for this long, you know, like how long ago did Dr. Octagon come out?
96, I think.
Right. So quite a while, you know, and I think when you first hear Dr. Octagon, it's shockingly out of control. I mean, I had never heard anything like it. And I didn't even know what it was. I bought it because one of my favorite artists, Pusshead, did the cover.
Oh yeah.
And so like literally all through, I don't know, the late 80s through 2000, if Pusshead did the artwork, I bought it. I didn't care. So I bought it and not even knowing it was a hip hop record. So I fell in love with it. I was obsessed with that first Dr. Octagon record.
It's amazing.
But the thing is, it's like after you've heard him do that a lot, after you've heard Black Elvis, it starts to kind of lose that edge a little bit. And I'm not trying to put it down. I'm just saying that it's very Cool Keith. I mean, if you've listened to him, you know exactly what you're getting. You know, that's awesome. It's good to hear it. But like you said, the production of this kind of is the most interesting element. It's very funky, 60s, 70s spy samples basically throughout, but not completely. You know, it's not like a novelty. You know, they don't take it to that level. It's just like there's lots of strings, flutes, funky bass and drums, and you know, it does have this certain Charlie's Angels kind of feel to the whole thing,
right? Which
is awesome. Yeah, I don't know. It's hard when something is just really good, and you know what I mean, and like you don't have much else to say about it.
Yeah,
like, this is just, if you like Cool Keith, you're gonna like this.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's how it is. And honestly, though, because of some of the source material being what it is, this kind of 70s, 60s spy thing, there's some tracks that actually almost verge on being like Portishead style trip hop.
Yeah.
And definitely. That is really interesting to me. And to hear Cool Keith over that is super cool. So you're going to hear stuff you haven't heard Cool Keith rap over before, and it is going to feel. So to say it's all very samey seems not accurate, but at the same time, it is pretty, it's pretty Cool Keith at this point. So
yeah,
I don't know, if you like Cool Keith, I think you'll like it. And I don't have a lot else to add to it. I don't, you know, I think his style and his subject matter and how he raps and what he raps about, you do sort of just have to accept that it's a little out there.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. Good stuff.
Yep.
Awesome. So my last choice, that doesn't sound right. My second choice. If I had one last choice of any record to listen to, this would be it. Actually, a lot of people would probably agree with that. This record is by a group called Satanic Togas. The record is called X-Ray Vision. It came out in 2020. Satanic Togas are Australian, and they are part of sort of like the Australian psych scene a little bit. I don't know how much of a part of it, or if they're sort of like on the edges of the scene. But yeah, so like they're kind of like Drags, who we covered on this show a while ago. So they're also Australian psych stuff, but this is pretty different. This is not just psych. I would say mostly this is very angular, synthy spaz rock, like very spazzed out. It obviously has nods to like Devo. I mean, no spaz group doesn't.
Right.
But, you know, I mean, it is just fairly straightforward, annoying spaz nerd music. So like Men's Recovery Project, 3 Day Stubble, if you ever listen to them.
Never heard of them, but I like that name.
Yeah, they're dorks.
Hey, Men's Recovery Project, sorry to interrupt, but Men's Recovery Project has a song called Stubble on the Chin of a Vicious Brute.
Whoa. Maybe
do you think that is, I was wondering if that's connected. Maybe that's a collaboration or something. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah. A little bit of Residence in there too, just as far as modes and also vocal stylings. But also it is very psych, very psychedelic, reverb stuff. So like Drags that we covered, the OCs, Ty Segall, all that stuff. But it also is very punky, like a certain style of punk, which is also very spazzed out, but like the Crucifix or like Millions of Dead Cops, things like that, really edge of your seat, choppy, noisy synthesizer stuff, just absolute dork rock. I don't know how else to say it. It's like you either love this kind of stuff or you don't love this kind of stuff, and that's really all there is to it. Super fun for me, super annoying. Every element, every sound of this, if you're easily annoyed by sound and music, it's gonna push your buttons. For me, it's a bit of a release to hear such dissonant, irreverent, almost anti music. So it's always a nice reprieve for me to go from things that I actually have to like think about what makes them good to things where I can think about all the things that make it not good, you know, and like it just doesn't take any thought. It's just visceral and just super annoying. I don't know. I'm saying that in a good way. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but it's just super fun, out of your head, worms in your brain music. So anyway, what do you think, Dan?
Well, I mean, I already knew I was going to like this just from when I went to their Bandcamp page. I looked at, they describe themselves as punk garbage from the underworld, which I like, but they also have an album and it's not on Bandcamp, or maybe it's not an album. Maybe it's an EP or a single, but it's called The Shit That Killed Elvis. And to me, if anybody who has a title of anything called The Shit That Killed Elvis is automatically good. I mean, it can't be bad.
That's hilarious.
So there's that. And yeah, I mean, everything you said, Eric, I barely can add anything else. I mean, I definitely heard the angular synth stuff. I definitely heard the drags. Yeah, Devo, the Stooges, Ty Segall, Jay Reatard. I think if you like any of that stuff, fun, distorted guitars. It also reminds me a little bit of The Human Eye that we also reviewed.
Sure.
Super catchy synth parts at times. And it is probably the most lo-fi thing I've ever heard. It's like the definition of lo-fi. Like, I think if the dictionary is going to start putting lo-fi in there, they need to just put a picture of this album. Yeah. It's just it's that bad, but bad in a very, very good way. It's like bad in the best way. And it's like, I think that's awesome. I think clearly this band doesn't really give a shit and they're not taking themselves that serious. And I think that's amazing. It also has elements that remind me of the Screamers. Oh, also Baron Zen, also, particularly the song Skinhead. That's a great song. Totally reminded me of something that would have been on the Baron Zen album. I instantly thought of that. Yeah, this is absolutely fantastic. Tons of distortion and reverb. Vocals are just almost inaudible. But I mean, all of this is good. Like, I'm not like, I'm sorry. I hope like they don't end up like listening and think that I'm like because I love the fact that the vocals are almost inaudible. I love the fact that distortion and reverb are just covering almost everything up on certain parts. Also, I think if you like surf rock, I think, a noisier sort of Man or Astro Man would be a good description. Yeah, this is great. X-Ray Vision. Yeah, I mean, I think that describes the album. Like, this sounds like it was recorded by mutants from like if Toxie fronted a band. That's what this. Yeah, I mean, that. Yeah, what the Toxic Avengers? It's like
the Toxic Crusaders.
Toxic Crusaders. That's it. Yeah. But now, wasn't Toxie? He was like, okay, so let me get this straight. He was called the Toxic Avenger in the movies, right?
Yes. Yeah.
But he appeared in cartoon form in the Toxic Crusaders.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
And that
because
was a
they
bunch
sort of made like a Captain Planet sort of deal out of it. They had a group of young people that I honestly think they were cleaning up like toxic waste and environmental issues
they were.
and things.
Yep.
And I think Toxie was like their leader or something. All I really remember him is doing like maybe an outro at the end or something, you know, like a and knowing's half the battle sort of deal.
Right. Yeah.
I should probably watch it. I mean, how often does a trauma franchise get turned into a kid's cartoon? Like, I really should pay more attention to that.
Well, I used to watch it growing up all the time. Toxic Crew. I remember the chorus, Toxic Crusaders, which I mean, that obviously I wasn't hired to do the singing, but it would be funny if I was.
Yeah. So X-Ray Vision by the Toxic Crusaders.
By the Toxic Crusaders.
By Satanic Togas.
Satanic Togas. Yeah,
and the cover art destroys. It's gorgeous.
It's the cover art is amazing. It reminds me of like, it definitely reminds me of a cut and paste zine sort of thing. And I love it.
Yeah.
I love that stuff. And
it's super fun. If you like anything that we talked about, if you even like the Toxic Crusaders, just check this record out. You're gonna like
imagine if in the cartoon the Toxic Crusaders were a punk rock band instead of a bunch of environmentalists. Like, that's what this is.
Just for the record, no one has ever said that statement before. There's no way.
There's no way. And so that's, ladies and gentlemen, you hear it first.
Yep.
On Accelerativ Thrust.
Satanic Togas.
Satanic Togas. All right. So the local, if you've made it this far without shutting it off and throwing your listening device out the window, as I mentioned before, we're going to be reviewing Nalani Proctor from Keokuk, Iowa. I believe she's from Keokuk. Mm-hmm. We're going to review her single that she dropped on Friday the 13th called Voorhees, which is obviously, I'm pretty sure, a reference to Jason Voorhees from Friday the 13th. That would make a lot of sense. And then her EP that she dropped earlier this year. So this has been out a while, I think since February. You Were Right, Hold My Hand. So we'll start with the newest. And I'll talk about Voorhees. Voorhees is a track, and she released it as a single, and she put out a band version and an acoustic version. And it's not unusual for Nalani Proctor, I think, to make references to horror movies. Her old band, the PBJs, which I'm not sure if they're still performing, I don't think so, actually did a song called Horror Love, which has a really fantastic and hilarious video with all like three of the most iconic horror characters, Jason, Freddy, and Mike Myers. You probably should check that out, Erik, because I know how much you like horror movies.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
The thing that I will say about Nalani Proctor right off the bat is she's just a really great songwriter. There's some bird sounds in the background that are really nice, which kind of invokes the feeling that this was recorded outside. I'm not sure if that's what was going on or if that was what the intent was. I believe the acoustic version might have some ukulele in it or something like that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, this is just a really, really masterful song. And, from what I've heard of Nalani Proctor, I wouldn't expect any less. Her voice is absolutely fantastic. And so, yeah, Voorhees, very, very good. And then You Were Right, Hold My Hand is the 6-song EP that she released back in February. The first 3 songs immediately make me think of Voorhees. Has like a folky singer-songwriter kind of vibe, for lack of a better way to describe it. And it's done really, really well. But there are a few curveballs on this EP that I really like. My favorite song, hands down, is Rivermouth. It's kind of got this almost like disjointed sounding bridge, which I think is just absolutely incredible. It starts to get almost carnival-esque, which kind of reminds me of some of the breakdowns that Modest Mouse used to do, like on Lonesome Crowded West, for instance. And you can just hear that there's a lot of great instrumentation. You can definitely hear that Nalani just has, again, an excellent singing voice, but also is just a really great songwriter. And it sounds to me like she's probably a jack of all trades. Like she plays, I think, multiple instruments. So she is a multi-instrumentalist. And then all of a sudden it gets electronic. The song is called Solidage, I believe, or Solidage. I'm not sure how to pronounce that.
Solidago, maybe?
Is it Solidago?
I think so.
Okay. And the reason why I said Solidage is because of my handwriting. It looks like an E instead of an O. Gotcha. So I apologize for that. But it is a very new wave kind of sounding song. And this, again, it's just very catchy. And it kind of just goes in a different direction for a little bit. And same with the last track, kind of has a little bit of an electronic feel. And then the EP closes with an acoustic version of the second song. And it's amazing. Some of it reminds me a little bit of like early Radiohead, if you're like into that kind of stuff, like Pablo Honey, the Benz type stuff. Another thing that I forgot to mention on the song Rivermouth, I love the phaser guitar and echo voice effects that are on it. It totally stands out from the rest of the record, which is probably why it's my favorite track. But really, the entire thing is amazing. I would say that if you're into sort of Nora Jones, maybe even Apple a little bit, and like I said, Radiohead a little bit, some new wave as well, and just like really good singer-songwriter by somebody who I think is probably, I would assume Nalani is a trained musician. I don't know that for a fact, but it's amazing. I really enjoy this quite a bit. So Nalani, good job. What did you think, Erik?
I loved it. And of course, I loved the Voorhees song. Yeah, I just thought it was a really fun way to talk about horror and just write like a really beautiful song about Jason Voorhees, or at least use him as a placeholder for another idea. I don't know if it's metaphorical, you know?
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I like most about a lot of these songs, is that some elements of them are very direct and some are sort of left to interpretation. But yeah, and then you were right, Hold My Hand. I loved it. I was really blown away by it. She has an amazing, cool voice. Like it's one of, I would say it's one of the most naturally good voices I've heard. And what I mean by that is, in a world where a lot of people are doing a voice, I always appreciate when I don't feel like someone's doing a voice, when I feel like that's really what their voice sounds like. That's how this sounds to me.
Yeah.
It's a very powerful and full voice, but it never gets like operatic or cheesy rock or anything like that you usually associate with that kind of voice. It's just strong and powerful and really pretty. Vocally, I think it lands somewhere between like Jenny Lewis and Beth Gibbons from Portishead. Like both of those people have really strong voices that I never feel like they're putting on an act. They're never doing a voice. That's just their voice, you know? And so it kind of made me think of those two vocalists specifically. But yeah, the songs are really cool. They do span a lot of different sounds and moods, but I think they're always sort of anchored by the overall atmosphere of it, and her voice, of course, is the constant. And the arrangements and playing on this are so good. Like, and it's actually really amazing to me that it looks like she played everything.
Yes.
In the credits, it says like some sort of incidental sounds are done by some other people, but everything else is her. And what is cool about that, not only is the playing amazing, but a lot of times if you only have one person writing and performing and recording everything, it feels like all the ideas are coming from one source, that they don't seem like multiple people are having an influence on this, which sometimes can get sort of stale, like if a guitar part goes like this, you can pretty much bet if the same person's playing the bass part, they're going to be similar, And with this, I would not have suspected for a second that this is one person playing everything, because everything sounds like it's coming from a different idea source, like from a different person, if that makes any sense. And so all the playing's amazing. I really liked not just the kind of electronic rhythms of that song, Soladago. Yeah. I really like the actual synth sounds of it too. It's really cool. I did like all the reverb and stuff on the Rivermouth song. But one thing I really liked about this record is that there's tons of great reverb, atmospheric sound and everything. But whereas most people kind of hide behind that stuff and help to cover things that they might not feel as confident about.
Right.
Like, I mean, everyone who makes music knows that if you don't feel confident about something, you just cover it in reverb and then it's better.
Right.
But I don't think that's how this works. I think it all adds to it. And her voice is just so upfront that it's obvious she's not hiding behind anything. It's stark.
Yeah.
The vocals are stark. And when she does harmonies with herself or even just doubles up vocals for a natural chorus or whatever, it's just amazing. It's so good. Yeah, that's pretty much all I had to say about it, was that it's amazing. So, but yeah, I'm really glad you picked this, because I don't know Nalani, and as far as I know, I haven't seen her play or anything, so I'm not sure I would have found this on my own. So
it does have to be mentioned, she does have another project that is more like electronic new wave based called Finally Some Action.
Oh yeah, I've listened to them. I had no idea. Wow, that's cool.
She is the singer in that group.
Cool.
And
yeah, really horror bent.
Very, very much so. And if I'm not mistaken, and I could be wrong about, I think it might be with her husband, but I'm not sure. In any situation, it's a two-piece. And it's, very synth based. And like you said, very horror sort of themed or whatever. It's very cool stuff. So Nalani Proctor is part of Finally Some Action. So cool. It actually makes sense that she would have maybe an electronic sort of influenced song on her solo EP. So
cool.
Anyway, that's all, folks. I've been, when you're 40 and you've watched more Looney Tunes in your life than when you were 12, is that a problem?
Nah.
Okay. I just want to make sure.
This is your life. Do with it what you want.
It's my life, and it's now or never.
Now be careful. We don't want to get copyright.
See, that is an example of somebody who has an untrained voice, who, if I were to sing in that voice, I would be hiding behind a bunch of reverb and sounds and stuff.
There you go. That's what I do too. I mean, who doesn't? Well, Nalani Proctor.
Nalani Proctor doesn't.
Other than that, everyone else
has
a pretty bad voice, and it's hidden behind reverb.
Everybody. I can't think of anybody else in the universe.
No.
In the universe or the multiverse or the Matrix or any of that stuff.
Holy shit. Or the dream world.
The dream realm world.
Filled with dead deers and bags.
Dead deers and bags. And
wow.
People, stuff like that.
We've really taken a trip here on this episode.
Yeah, this is breaking new ground.
This is a heavy one, y'all.
folks, I hope you had a good time listening to this. Yeah, get at us with some of those dreams, man. I think we should become dream analysts for sure.
Yeah.
So next week,
speaking of dream analyst, what's going on next week?
Next week we're going to be talking about Sam Kester, or not about Sam Kester.
I'm going to be talking about him right to his face.
Right to his face. We're going to talk to Sam about River City Collective, and we're going to talk to him about, basically what we talk about with all our guests, the history of them in the Iowa scene, and probably get into some nonsense because, that's always a thing that happens. And I can't imagine having a conversation with Sam Kester. He's a pretty funny guy. Yeah. So he's got a good sense of humor. So I'm sure it's going to be a good one, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm sure we'll talk about some food.
Well, we're going to have to talk about food with Sam.
We all love food.
That seems to be a common thread with Sam. I know. Is food. Yeah. In fact, maybe that is what we'll just plan on talking about.
Okay. So forget everything Dan just said.
Yeah, forget everything.
We're going to have Sam Kester from Muscatine on next week, and we're just going to talk about food.
We're going to talk about food, ladies
and
gentlemen.
Sam has played in bands and shit, but we're mostly going to talk about tacos.
Yeah, tacos, burritos. Which one's better? Which one's more superior?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I had that debate.
Or supreme, as it were.
Yeah, I had that debate with somebody, and
really,
they said that they think the taco is the champion, and they love burritos, but they said that tacos are the champion because you can make a taco into a Choco Taco, but if you did that with a burrito, it would just be an ice cream sandwich.
That's true.
Yeah.
It would just be a chorito burrito.
A chorito burrito. Actually, that's sounding pretty good.
Yeah. One time, one of my wife's friends called a Choco Taco a Chicatico. And so now I always call them Chicatacos. But actually, I don't want to say always because I haven't said. I haven't talked about a Choco Taco till now from 20 years ago. But if it ever comes up, I would say Chicatico.
To be honest with you, I haven't seen a Choco Taco in 20 years.
If you work for Choco Taco, reach out to us and let us know.
Yeah, we would like to see one. We need to know if they
let us know if you'd like to sponsor our podcast.
Yeah. Oh my God. If we got sponsored by Choco.
Accelerativ Thrust, sponsored by Chicatico.
Chicatico.
Yeah.
Oh man. Okay.
We gotta leave. We
gotta leave, guys. Hit us up on Instagram and Facebook. Let us know about those dreams. Let us know about any records you want us to review.
Yeah.
Let us know about anything, man. We're here to discuss. Accelerativ Thrust on Facebook and Instagram. Thank you for listening, everyone.
Brought to you by Chicatico.
Chicatico. We got to come up with a jingle, like a Chicatico jingle. Chicatico.